Olivia Chen wiped her hands on her flour-dusted apron as she pushed through the swinging doors of the military base kitchen. The conference room fell silent as she entered, carrying a tray of freshly baked pastries for the emergency strategy meeting. Colonel James Harrison glanced up with visible irritation. "Great, the kitchen staff is interrupting a classified briefing," he muttered, just loud enough for everyone to hear. A few officers chuckled as Olivia quietly arranged the refreshments. On the side table, her eyes fixed on her task, revealing nothing of what she was thinking. "Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you." No one in that room suspected that the quiet woman arranging croissants had once been responsible for some of the most dangerous covert operations in recent military history, or that within 48 hours she would save all their lives using skills they never imagined their base cook possessed. Olivia had been the head cook at Fort Westlake Military Base for 4 years. Every morning at 4:30 a.m., she arrived to prepare breakfast for hundreds of soldiers and officers. Her chicken pot pie was legendary, her chocolate chip cookies fought over, and her calm, unassuming presence a constant in the busy mess hall. Soldiers would joke and chat as they passed through her serving line, seeing nothing more than a civilian contractor doing her job. "Hey Cookie, these mashed potatoes are almost as good as my mom's," they'd say with friendly smiles, never noticing how her eyes scanned each room automatically, how she positioned herself with clear sightlines to all entrances, or how her hands moved with the precise efficiency of someone trained for far more than culinary arts. What no one at Fort Westlake knew was that before Olivia Chen became their beloved cook, she had been Captain Olivia Chen, call sign Phantom, one of the most effective operatives in the military's elite and highly classified shadow operations group for 8 years. She had conducted missions so secret that fewer than 20 people in the entire government knew they had occurred. Her specialty had been deep cover infiltration and exfiltration of high-value targets from hostile territories. Where conventional teams failed, they sent Phantom. It had been 5 years since she walked away from that life. 5 years of deliberately building a new identity as far removed from her former self as possible. 5 years of measured breathing exercises when the nightmares came, of ignoring the instinct to check for surveillance when she went grocery shopping, of pretending not to notice when new recruits practiced laughably inadequate hand-to-hand combat techniques on the training field visible from her kitchen window. "Will there be anything else, Colonel?" Olivia asked quietly, her voice betraying no emotion, no hint of her thoughts as she finished arranging the pastries. "No, that's all. Just make sure no one else from the kitchen interrupts us," Harrison replied dismissively, already turning his attention back to the maps spread across the conference table. As Olivia turned to leave, her gaze briefly passed over the satellite imagery displayed on the large screen at the front of the room. In that fraction of a second, her trained mind registered critical details about the terrain, building layouts, and defensive positions shown in the photos. She recognized the location immediately, the border region near Kashmir, where tensions had been escalating for months. More importantly, she spotted 3 tactical errors in the proposed infiltration route, marked in red on the map. Errors that would lead the team directly into an ambush zone she had once navigated herself. But Olivia said nothing. She simply nodded respectfully and left the room, closing the door quietly behind her. That wasn't her life anymore. She had made her choice. Back in the kitchen, Olivia returned to kneading dough for tomorrow's bread, the repetitive motions soothing and mindless. As her hands worked, her thoughts drifted to the life she had left behind and the decision that had ended her career as one of the military's most valuable assets. Growing up in Seattle, Olivia had been a gifted athlete and student, the daughter of Chinese immigrants who emphasized education and excellence above all else. Her mother, a university professor, and her father, a structural engineer, had dreams of Olivia attending an Ivy League school and pursuing a prestigious career. What they hadn't anticipated was their daughter's fierce, independent streak and her deep-seated desire to serve a cause greater than herself. Against her parents' wishes, Olivia enlisted in the military at 18, quickly distinguishing herself in basic training. Her exceptional physical abilities, analytical mind, and remarkable facility with languages caught the attention of special operations recruiters. By 22, she had completed the most rigorous training programs the military offered, and was tapped for an elite unit that officially didn't exist. For 8 years, Olivia disappeared into the shadows of global conflict zones. She learned to become whoever she needed to be to complete her missions: a humanitarian aid worker in Sudan, a telecommunications engineer in Yemen, a medical supplier. In North Korea, she spoke 7 languages fluently and could convincingly fake 4 more. She could disassemble and reassemble any standard issue weapon in under 30 seconds while blindfolded. She had killed 17 people in the line of duty, each one a weight she carried silently within her. Then came the Simra mission, the operation that changed everything. The objective had seemed straightforward: extract a high-value defector from a heavily guarded compound in a hostile nation. Intelligence indicated the defector had critical information about an imminent terrorist attack on American soil. Olivia's team consisted of 5 operatives, each among the best the Shadow Operations Group had to offer. The plan was meticulously crafted, with redundancies built in for every contingency. What they hadn't accounted for was betrayal from within. Someone had sold them out. The moment they breached the compound perimeter, it became clear they had walked into a trap. Enemy forces had been waiting, positions prepared, every exit covered. In the chaos that followed, Olivia watched 3 of her teammates die in the first 5 minutes. With communications jammed and extraction impossible, she and the remaining team member, her close friend Lieutenant Marcus Reed, fought their way to a secondary position. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. "We're not going to make it out of this one, are we, Chen?" Marcus had asked, applying pressure to the gunshot wound in his side, his face pale from blood loss. "Not both of us," Olivia had answered truthfully. She never lied to her teammates, not even to provide false comfort. "But I can create a diversion. Give you a chance to reach the extraction point with the intel." "Negative," Marcus had insisted. The mission parameters were clear. "The intelligence is the priority, not our lives." "You're in better shape then." "I am. You take it." What followed was the most difficult decision of Olivia's career. Against direct orders, she refused to leave her teammate behind. Instead, she improvised an alternative approach that no sane operative would have attempted. Using herself as bait, she drew enemy fire while simultaneously securing the intelligence package and creating an escape route for Marcus. The plan worked, but at terrible cost. Marcus survived and the intelligence was secured, preventing the terrorist attack and saving countless American lives. But Olivia sustained injuries that required 6 months of rehabilitation, and in the process of saving her friend, she had directly disobeyed orders from the highest levels. When she finally returned to active duty, she was summoned to a closed-door meeting with General David Montgomery, the commander of the Shadow Operations Group. "Your actions were in direct violation of mission parameters, Captain Chen," Montgomery had stated, his face unreadable as he reviewed her file. "The objective was the intelligence, not personnel recovery." "With respect, sir, I determined that I could accomplish both objectives," Olivia had responded. "By risking the primary objective, by ignoring a direct order." Montgomery's voice had remained even, betraying neither anger nor admiration. "You know our protocols, Captain. In our line of work, we sometimes must sacrifice the few to protect the many." "I'm aware of the protocols, sir. I chose to disregard them. And why is that, Captain? Olivia had paused, considering her words carefully. Because they were wrong, sir. I believed then, and I believe now, that protecting our own is never secondary. We carry out the darkest missions so others don't have to. If we abandon our own people, then what separates us from those we fight against? The room had fallen silent as Montgomery studied her. Finally, he spoke. Your skills are exceptional, Captain Chen. Your record is nearly flawless. But I can't have operators who believe they can selectively follow orders based on personal moral judgments. I understand, sir. No, I don't think you do. Montgomery leaned forward. Your actions, while insubordinate, saved both the mission and Lieutenant Reed. Some would call that commendable. Others would see it as dangerous improvisation that got lucky. Either way, it presents me with a problem. You've demonstrated that. You're willing to prioritize your team over mission objectives. That makes you unpredictable. What are you saying, sir? I'm saying you have a choice to make, Captain. You can accept reassignment to a training role, where your skills can benefit the next generation of operatives, but you'll never see field action again. Or you can take an honorable discharge with full benefits and walk away entirely. The decision had torn Olivia apart. The Shadow Operations Group had been her life, her purpose, her family. But she also knew she couldn't change who she was. If faced with the same situation again, she would make the same choice. 2 weeks later, Captain Olivia Chen ceased to exist on any official record. Her service history was classified, her medals locked away in an anonymous storage facility, her very identity redacted from all but the most restricted databases. She walked away from the only adult life she had known, with no clear direction. For what came next? The transition to civilian life had been brutal. The skills that had made her exceptional in special operations had little application in the regular world. She couldn't list expert in covert infiltration or proficient in battlefield medicine under extreme duress on a resume. The hypervigilance that had kept her alive in hostile territories became a liability in crowded shopping malls and busy streets. The nightmares came nightly, faces of those she couldn't save, decisions she couldn't undo. It was during this darkest period that Olivia discovered cooking. Initially, it was simply a practical matter. She needed to eat, and preparing food gave structure to days that otherwise stretched empty before her. But gradually, she found unexpected solace in the precise measurements, the methodical preparation, the sensory focus required to create something nourishing. Cooking engaged her hands and quieted her mind. It required many of the same skills she had honed in her former life: attention to detail, adaptability, timing, patience. Most importantly, it allowed her to care for others in a way that caused no harm, that created rather than destroyed. She enrolled in a culinary program, throwing herself into learning with the same intensity she had once applied to mission preparations. Her instructors were amazed at her focus, her memory for recipes, her ability to improvise when necessary. Upon graduation, she deliberately sought positions that would keep her connected to the military community, the world she understood, while maintaining a safe distance from her past. The position at Fort Westlake had been perfect. A civilian contractor role, cooking for troops but separate from the command structure. The base was large enough to provide anonymity, but small enough to feel manageable. Most importantly, it was far from Washington, D.C., and the circles where someone might recognize the face of an operative who officially never existed. For 4 years, she had found a measure of peace in this new life. The nightmares came less frequently. She developed friendships with other kitchen staff, limited and careful connections that provided human contact without revealing too much. She even dated occasionally, brief relationships that inevitably ended when the questions about her past became too persistent, or when her instincts flared at inopportune moments. Now as she shaped the bread dough into perfect loaves, Olivia tried to push away the memories stirred by the satellite imagery she had glimpsed in the conference room. It wasn't her concern anymore. She had made her choice. She had found a kind of peace in this simpler life. But that night, as she drove home to her small apartment just outside the base, Olivia couldn't shake the sense of unease that had settled over her. The mission being planned was headed for disaster, she was certain of it. The terrain had changed since the satellite images were taken. The infiltration route passed too close to known surveillance points. The extraction zone was vulnerable to ambush. People would die, good people, soldiers just doing their job, because of outdated intelligence and flawed planning. Olivia parked her car and sat for a long moment, staring at nothing. It wasn't her problem. It wasn't her life anymore. She had traded that world for the simplicity of measuring flour and sugar, of creating rather than destroying. Inside her apartment, Olivia moved through her nightly routine with mechanical precision. She checked the locks twice, swept for electronic surveillance out of habit rather than necessity, and prepared for bed with military efficiency. But sleep wouldn't come. At 2 a.m., she gave up trying. Sitting at her small kitchen table, she drew the satellite image from memory, sketching terrain features and marking potential danger zones with the precision of someone who had studied military cartography extensively. By dawn, she had created a detailed analysis of the mission's vulnerabilities and 3 alternative approach strategies. Then she tore the papers into tiny pieces, burned them in her sink, and washed the ashes down the drain. It wasn't her place to interfere. She had left that life behind. That morning, as she prepared breakfast for hundreds of hungry soldiers, Olivia overheard snippets of conversation that confirmed her fears. The mission was scheduled to deploy in 36 hours. A 12-person team would be inserted into exactly the location she had identified as a death trap. As she served scrambled eggs and bacon, Olivia noticed Captain Sarah Reynolds, one of the few female officers who had always treated her with respect, sitting alone at a corner table. Reynolds was part of the intelligence division, and from the dark circles under her eyes, she had been working through the night. Making a split-second decision, Olivia brought over a fresh pot of coffee and some additional toast. "You look like you could use this, Captain," she said quietly, refilling Reynolds' cup. "Thanks, Olivia," Reynolds sighed, rubbing her temples. "Been a long night." Olivia hesitated, then spoke carefully. "Captain, this isn't my place, but I couldn't help overhearing about the upcoming mission to Kashmir." She kept her voice low, her eyes on the coffee she was pouring. "The satellite imagery you're working with is outdated. There's been significant movement in the border regions over the past 3 weeks." Captain Reynolds looked up sharply. "What did you say?" "Just that sometimes public news sources have more current information than official channels," Olivia continued smoothly. "There was an article in International Defense Weekly about increased surveillance systems along the northern approach. Might be worth checking before finalizing any plans." Reynolds studied her face for a long moment. "How would you know what imagery we're working with, Olivia?" "That's classified information." Olivia shrugged with carefully crafted casualness. "I delivered pastries to the briefing yesterday. Couldn't help seeing the big screen. I watch a lot of documentaries on geopolitics in my free time." She turned to go. "Just thought it might be helpful." "Sorry for overstepping." "Wait," Reynolds called softly. "International Defense Weekly, you said?" "Latest issue," Olivia confirmed, then returned to the kitchen without looking back. That afternoon, Olivia was kneading dough for dinner rolls when Colonel Harrison himself stormed into the kitchen, his face dark with anger. Behind him came Captain Reynolds and a stern-looking officer Olivia didn't recognize. "Everyone out," Harrison ordered the kitchen staff. "Except you, Chen." As the other kitchen workers filed out, casting confused glances at Olivia, she calmly wiped her hands on her apron and faced the officers. Her expression revealed nothing, but internally, She was calculating distances to exits, potential improvised weapons within reach, and the most likely scenarios about to unfold. "Colonel," she acknowledged politely, "how can I help you?" "Cut the act, Chen," Harrison snapped. "Or whatever your real name is." Captain Reynolds brought some interesting concerns to my attention after your little chat this morning. We've been running background checks all day. "I'm not sure I understand, sir," Olivia maintained her composure, though she knew exactly what was happening. Her carefully constructed cover was unraveling. The question was how much they had discovered and what they intended to do about it. The unknown officer stepped forward. "My name is Major Thomas Grant, Military Intelligence. Your employment records at this base list you as Olivia Chen, civilian contractor, culinary school graduate with no military background." He placed a folder on the stainless steel counter. "But there are irregularities in your background that raised flags when we looked deeper. No social media presence. Minimal digital footprint overall. Culinary school records that are perfectly legitimate, but start rather suddenly 5 years ago. And most interestingly, exceptional performance evaluations that note your unusual attention to security protocols and remarkable situational awareness for a civilian employee." Olivia remained silent, evaluating her options. Denial would be pointless. Running would confirm their suspicions. The truth was likely her only viable path, but how much of it to reveal remained the question. "Then there's the matter of your conversation with Captain Reynolds," Colonel Harrison continued. "Specific knowledge about classified mission details. Awareness of satellite imagery you shouldn't have been able to meaningfully interpret. And most damning, accurate intelligence about surveillance systems that we've only just been able to verify through official channels." "Who are you really?" Major Grant asked quietly. "And what's your interest in our operation?" Olivia took a measured breath. "My name is Olivia Chen. That much is true. I'm a cook." "That's also true." She paused, making a final decision about how much to reveal. "Before that, I served. The details are classified beyond your clearance level, Colonel." Harrison's face flushed with anger. "You expect me to believe? Call General Montgomery." Olivia interrupted, dropping the name like a stone into still water. "Tell him Phantom is working in your kitchen. He'll understand." The name landed with visible impact. Major Grant's eyes widened slightly. He clearly recognized the call. "Sign," though he masked his reaction quickly. Colonel Harrison looked confused, but Captain Reynolds drew in a sharp breath. "Phantom?" Reynolds whispered. "But that's a ghost story," Olivia finished for her. "A legend told to Special Forces trainees." "I know." She turned to the sink and began washing her hands, the mundane action at odds with the tension in the room. "Make the call, or don't, Colonel. But your mission to Kashmir is compromised. The intel is bad. The approach is exposed. And your team will die if they go in as planned." The next 2 hours passed in a blur of secure phone calls, hastily arranged, video conferences, and increasingly higher-ranking officers joining the conversation. Olivia sat calmly at a table in Colonel Harrison's office, answering questions with minimal information and referring most inquiries to authorities she knew were well above the clearance level of anyone at Fort Westlake. Finally, a secure video call connected them directly to General Montgomery himself, now with more gray in his hair than when Olivia had last seen him, but his piercing gaze unchanged. "It's been a while, Phantom," Montgomery said, using her old call sign with a hint of what might have been respect. 5 years, 2 months, sir," Olivia responded. "Never expected to find you making dinner rolls at a third-tier military base. That was rather the point, sir." Montgomery's expression remained unreadable, but something in his eyes softened momentarily. "You were always one of our best. Your departure was a loss to the program. A necessary one, sir, for both of us." The general nodded, then addressed Colonel Harrison, who had been watching this exchange with growing confusion. Colonel, I'm temporarily reassigning Ms. Chun to your command for the duration of this situation. Her security clearance is being reactivated as we speak. She will have full authority to review and revise the Kashmir operation. Sir, Harrison sputtered, with all due respect, you're giving mission control to our cook? Montgomery's gaze hardened. Colonel, the woman you've had making your breakfast for the past 4 years has more combat drops into hostile territory than your entire officer corps combined. She's forgotten more about covert operations than most special forces operators will ever learn. And most importantly, she knows that region better than anyone else available to you right now. He paused. Consider this a rare opportunity to work with a legend, Colonel. I suggest you take full advantage of it. The call ended, leaving a stunned silence in the office. Colonel Harrison stared at Olivia as if seeing her for the first time. Captain Reynolds looked like she had 1,000 questions she was afraid to ask. And Major Grant studied Olivia with a new, calculating respect. Well, Olivia said after a moment, rising from her chair, I should inform my kitchen staff that dinner will be delayed. She smiled slightly at their expressions. And then perhaps someone could brief me on the full operational details for Kashmir. We have work to do. As she walked out of the office, Olivia felt a complex mixture of emotions washing over her. Dread at being pulled back into the world she had left behind. Relief at no longer maintaining the pretense. And somewhere deep inside, a small, reluctant spark of something she hadn't felt in 5 years. The electric thrill of purpose, of using her true skills again, of stepping back into the person she had spent so long trying to forget. The base. Cook was gone. Phantom had returned. And a 12-person team now had a fighting chance at survival because of it. The transition from kitchen staff to mission consultant happened with dizzying speed. Within hours of General Montgomery's call, Olivia found herself standing in the base's secure operations center, surrounded by equipment that felt both familiar and strange after her years away. The room buzzed with a nervous energy as team leaders and intelligence officers tried to reconcile the woman they had known as their cook with the operative, now calmly dismantling their mission plan. Your primary insertion point is directly in the line of sight of 3 new surveillance installations, Olivia explained, marking positions on the digital map with quick, precise movements. And your secondary extraction zone has been compromised by increased civilian activity in these villages. Her fingers traced alternative routes with the confidence of someone who had walked the terrain herself. You need to adjust both your approach and your timeline. Colonel Harrison watched from the corner, his expression a mixture of disbelief and growing respect. Captain Reynolds stood nearby, taking detailed notes and occasionally asking questions that revealed her sharp intelligence and quick grasp of tactical realities. The mission window needs to be shortened to 14 hours maximum, Olivia continued. Any longer and you risk detection from the patrol patterns I've observed in this region. Observed? Major Grant questioned. These patterns aren't in our intelligence reports. How current is your information? Olivia met his gaze steadily. One maintains certain contacts. For professional interest only. She turned back to the map. The information is current as of last week. The planning session stretched into the night as Olivia methodically reconstructed the mission from the ground up. What emerged was a radically different approach, smaller teams, lighter equipment, faster movement, and a much more complex extraction plan that utilized terrain features the original mission had overlooked entirely. By dawn, the team had a viable strategy. Colonel Harrison, who had initially bristled at taking direction from his former cook, now nodded with grudging approval. This could work, he admitted. But it requires skills some of our personnel don't have. The climbing section alone needs someone with advanced mountaineering experience. I'm aware, Olivia replied. That's why I'll be going in with them. The room fell silent. Captain Reynolds was the first to speak. But you've been out of the field for years. A ghost of a smile crossed Olivia's face. Some skills don't fade, Captain. She turned to Colonel Harrison. I'm not asking permission, Colonel. General Montgomery's orders were clear about my authority in this situation. Harrison studied her for a long moment, then nodded curtly. Get what equipment you need. Wheels up in 6 hours. As the room cleared, Captain Reynolds lingered behind. Why did you do it? She asked quietly. You had a safe position here. A new life. Why risk exposing yourself to help with a mission? That wasn't your responsibility? Olivia gathered the map she had annotated, her movements precise and economical. 12 people were heading into an ambush, Captain. What would you have done? But you left that world behind. For good reasons, I assume. Olivia paused, considering how much to reveal. I disagreed with certain principles of operation. Not with the people who carry them out. She met Reynolds' gaze directly. Those 12 people matter. Their lives matter. Sometimes that's reason enough. Reynolds nodded slowly. For what it's worth, I always thought there was something different about you. The way you moved. The way you noticed things others missed. She smiled slightly. I just thought you were the most situationally aware cook in the military. I am, Olivia replied with the first genuine smile Reynolds had ever seen from her. I'm also other things. In the armory, Olivia experienced a surreal sense of déjà vu as she requisitioned equipment she hadn't touched in 5 years. The weight of the tactical vest felt both foreign and familiar against her shoulders. Her fingers moved automatically through equipment checks, muscle memory taking over despite the years of disuse. The mission team, now reduced from 12 to 8 of the most qualified operators, watched with undisguised curiosity as she prepared. They had all heard rumors by now, whispers of who exactly their base cook had been in her previous life. Some were skeptical, others were intrigued. A few seemed almost starstruck, having heard the legends of Phantom's exploits during their training. Sergeant Michael Diaz, the team leader, approached her as she checked her communications gear. The men are wondering, he said without preamble. Are you really her? Phantom? Olivia continued her equipment check without looking up. Does it matter, Sergeant? It matters to them. They're about to risk their lives following your plan. She paused, finally meeting his gaze. Yes, I was Phantom. Now I'm the person making sure you all come home. She resumed her check. Judge me by what I do in the field, not by stories you've heard. Diaz nodded, seemingly satisfied. Fair enough. But for the record, those stories got a lot of us through the toughest parts of training. If half of them are true, we're in good hands. The flight to the forward operating base nearest the mission zone took 4 hours. Olivia spent most of it with her eyes closed, not sleeping but running through mental simulations of what lay ahead, the terrain, the timing, the contingencies. In her mind, she walked every step of the route, anticipated every potential complication, prepared responses for every scenario she could envision. It was a meditation technique she had learned from a Tibetan operative years ago. The body rests while the mind prepares. When the time comes to act, both are ready. As the transport plane began its descent, Olivia opened her eyes to find several team members watching her. Their expressions had changed during the flight, the skepticism largely replaced by a cautious respect. They had observed her preparation, her focus, her calm. They recognized a professional at work. 2 minutes to landing, the pilot announced over the intercom. Weather conditions at the drop zone have deteriorated. Visibility down to half a mile with light precipitation. Sergeant Diaz looked concerned. That complicates the insertion. It helps us, Olivia corrected. Reduced visibility works both ways. We can use the weather as cover. She began making slight adjustments to her equipment. We'll need to modify the descent rate for the conditions, but the basic approach remains viable. At the forward operating base, final preparations moved quickly. The team would insert via halo jump, high altitude, low opening, a specialized parachute technique that allowed for stealth insertion from extreme heights. It was one of the most demanding infiltration methods, requiring exceptional skill and precise execution. As they suited up, one of the younger team members, Specialist Jason Rodriguez, approached Olivia hesitantly. "Ma'am, is it true what they say? That you once infiltrated a hostile compound by posing as cleaning staff for 3 weeks before extracting the target?" Olivia adjusted her oxygen mask without looking up. 4 weeks. And I was posing as a gardener, not cleaning staff. She checked his equipment with a critical eye, tightening a loose strap on his harness. The key was patience. Most operations fail because operators rush. Remember that. The jump went flawlessly despite the challenging conditions. Olivia felt a rush of familiar exhilaration as she plummeted through the darkness, the wind screaming past her helmet, the earth rushing up to meet her. This was the moment when everything simplified, when the complexities of identity and past and future dissolved into the pure present of action. The team landed precisely at the designated insertion point, a narrow valley shielded from surveillance by surrounding mountains. Quickly gathering their parachutes and burying the evidence of their arrival, they began the trek toward the target location, a suspected weapons development facility hidden deep in the contested border region. Olivia moved at the front of the formation, her senses hyper-alert, reading the terrain with the practiced eye of someone who understood that survival often depended on noticing the smallest details. A disturbed patch of soil, an unnaturally bent branch. The absence of wildlife sounds that should be present. "Hold," she whispered suddenly, raising a closed fist. The team froze instantly. For several long seconds, nothing moved. Then Olivia pointed silently to their left, where a nearly invisible tripwire glinted faintly in the dim moonlight. Sergeant Diaz exhaled softly. "Would have walked right into it." Olivia nodded, then carefully marked the location for the team to avoid. It was the first of several detection systems they encountered as they moved deeper into hostile territory. Each time, Olivia spotted the danger before it became a threat. Her instincts, honed by years of operating in the world's most dangerous places, had not dulled during her time in the kitchen. By dawn, they had reached an observation point overlooking their target. The facility was nestled in a small valley, its true purpose disguised by outbuildings designed to look like agricultural storage. "Exactly as your intelligence suggested," Diaz murmured as they studied the compound through high-powered optics. "But security is heavier than we anticipated." Olivia counted guard positions, noting patrol patterns and timing. 3 additional guard posts on the northern perimeter. Rotation every 30 minutes instead of the expected hour. She studied the main building carefully. And those aren't standard security personnel. Their movement patterns indicate special forces training. "Does this change the approach?" Captain Reynolds asked. She had insisted on joining the mission, arguing that her intelligence background would be valuable for assessing the information they gathered. "We adjust," Olivia replied calmly. "That's what we do." She sketched a quick modification to their plan in the dirt. "We'll use the drainage covert on the east side. It's less direct but avoids the new guard positions." "That covert's not on our schematics," Diaz objected. "It wouldn't be. It's relatively new construction." Olivia erased her sketch with a sweep of her hand. "I can see the ground subsidence pattern from here. There's water flow underneath that section of the perimeter." Reynolds looked skeptical. "You can determine underground water channels from surface vegetation patterns? Among other indicators, yes." Olivia began repacking her observation gear. "It's a skill you develop when standard infiltration routes are likely to be monitored or mined." The team moved into position as dusk approached, using the growing shadows for cover. Their mission was straightforward in concept, but incredibly complex in execution. Infiltrate the facility, Confirm the presence of prohibited weapons technology. Place specialized monitoring devices and extract without detection at the perimeter. They discovered Olivia had been correct. A drainage covert, just large enough for a person to navigate on hands and knees, provided access beneath the security fence. Olivia led the way, moving with silent efficiency through the narrow passage. Inside the compound, the team split into predetermined groups. Olivia, Reynolds, and Specialist Rodriguez would access the main laboratory building, while Diaz and the others secured their escape route and placed perimeter sensors. 20 minutes maximum, Olivia reminded them. Radio silence unless absolutely necessary. Rendezvous at Extraction Point Alpha at 2145 hours. The laboratory building was secured with an electronic lock system. Rodriguez moved to attach a decryption device, but Olivia stopped him with a gentle hand on his arm. Instead, she examined the keypad closely, noting the wear patterns on specific digits. Then, surprising both her companions, she pulled a small container of fine powder from her equipment. Fingerprint residue, she explained quietly, dusting the keypad lightly. Under her small UV light, several digits glowed more prominently than others. Most people don't realize they leave microscopic oil traces even on keypads designed to resist fingerprinting. With methodical precision, she tried various combinations of the highlighted digits. On the fourth attempt, the lock disengaged. With a soft click. "That's not standard training," Reynolds whispered as they entered. "No," Olivia agreed. "It's what you learn when the standard methods get people killed." Inside, the facility was clinically sterile and brightly lit. Moving with extreme caution, they navigated through research areas filled with equipment that confirmed their intelligence. This was indeed a weapons development site, focused on chemical agents designed to incapacitate rather than kill. "Perfect for urban deployment," Reynolds murmured as she documented the evidence with a specialized camera. "Disable a population without destroying infrastructure." Olivia placed monitoring devices at strategic locations throughout the facility, carefully positioning them to avoid detection during routine security sweeps. Each device was no larger than a button, but contained sophisticated sensors that would transmit data to satellite relays for months. They were nearly finished when Rodriguez's radio crackled to life, breaking their radio silence protocol. "Primary team, be advised. Perimeter breach on the south side. Unknown hostiles engaging facility security, not our people." "Olivia, process this information instantly. A third party. Someone else is interested in this facility." She turned to Reynolds. "We need to move, now." They made their way toward their extraction point, moving carefully to avoid being caught in the crossfire between facility security and the unknown attackers. Through windows they could see muzzle flashes and the chaos of an unexpected assault. "This works in our favor," Olivia noted as they navigated a service corridor. "The distraction should cover our exit." But as they rounded the final corner toward their exit point, they came face to face with 4 armed men who were decidedly not facility security. Their unmarked black uniforms and specialized equipment marked them as mercenaries, highly trained, and extremely dangerous. For a fraction of a second, both groups froze in surprise. Then training took over. Olivia moved with shocking speed, pushing Reynolds and Rodriguez back around the corner as the first bullets splintered the wall where they had been standing. In one fluid motion, she dropped to a crouch, drew her sidearm, and returned fire with precise, controlled bursts. "Alternative exit route," she commanded calmly, as if they were discussing lunch options rather than fighting for their lives. "Through the research wing, second-floor window. There's a maintenance shed roof 17 feet below that will break our fall." Reynolds stared at her in disbelief. "How could you possibly know that?" "I counted exterior structural features." "During our approach," Olivia replied, firing another carefully placed shot that found its target. "It's what I do." They retreated strategically, Olivia covering their movement with remarkably efficient use of ammunition. She never wasted a shot, each one either finding its target or forcing the pursuers to take cover, buying precious seconds for their escape. At the second-floor window, Rodriguez hesitated. 17 feet is a serious drop, even with something to break the fall. Roll when you land. Distribute the impact across your body, Olivia instructed, still remarkably calm despite the sound of pursuers getting closer. Reynolds first, then you. I'll cover and follow. Reynolds took a deep breath, then launched herself through the window. Rodriguez followed moments later. Olivia fired several final shots to slow their pursuers, then dove through the opening just as the door to the room burst open behind her. The landing was jarring but controlled. Olivia absorbed the impact and was on her feet in seconds, assessing her teammates and their surroundings. "This way," she directed, pointing toward a section of the compound where the firefight between security forces and the unknown attackers was most intense. "We use their conflict as cover." They moved through the chaos like ghosts, Olivia leading them through gaps in the fighting, timing their movements to coincide with distractions, always keeping structures between them and potential observers. It was a masterclass in tactical movement, the kind of skill that couldn't be taught in standard training, that could only be developed through years of high-risk operations. At the perimeter, they rejoined Diaz and the rest of the team, who had been monitoring the unexpected battle with growing concern. "Extraction plan compromised," Diaz reported tensely. "Our vehicle team reports the road is now controlled by hostile forces. No way to reach us without engaging." Olivia processed this information without visible reaction. "Alternative extraction," she stated, already formulating a new plan. "The river gorge, 2 miles east. Fast water, but navigable with improvised rafts. It will carry us beyond the conflict zone to secondary pickup coordinates." "Rafts?" Diaz questioned. "We don't have materials or time to construct rafts. The agricultural outbuilding we passed on insertion has plastic irrigation pipes and storage tarps," Olivia replied, already adjusting her direction. "Combined with paracord from our gear, we can construct functional flotation devices in under 15 minutes. Reynolds looked at her with undisguised amazement. "You noticed irrigation equipment during a night insertion while focused on the Faya mission?" "I notice everything," Olivia said simply. "It's kept me alive in situations where others died." The next 20 minutes demonstrated exactly why Phantom had become a legend in special operations circles. Olivia led the team to the agricultural shed, where they quickly gathered materials under her precise direction. With practiced efficiency, she showed them how to construct improvised flotation devices strong enough to support their weight and equipment through fast-moving water. "Secure your weapons in waterproof pouches," she instructed as they worked. "When we hit the water, stay feet first, facing downstream. Use your legs to push off rocks, not your arms. If you capsize, release the raft and swim aggressively to the nearest shore." Rodriguez looked at her with newfound respect. Did they teach this in cook school too? For the first time during the mission, Olivia smiled, a brief, genuine expression that transformed her face. "No. This I learned evacuating an operative with a broken leg from Kashmir during monsoon season." She secured the final lashing. "On her raft, he lived, so will we." The river escape was harrowing but effective. The powerful current carried them swiftly away from the conflict zone, through a steep gorge that no ground vehicles could follow. The team suffered only minor injuries, bruises and scrapes from collisions with rocks, before reaching a calmer section where they could direct their makeshift rafts toward the shore. As they dragged themselves onto the riverbank several miles downstream, Diaz established communication with their extraction team, redirecting them to their new location. The mission had been accomplished against incredible odds. The team was intact, and they had gathered critical intelligence about both the weapons facility and the mysterious third party that had attacked it. While they waited for extraction, the team's attitude toward Olivia had transformed completely. The skepticism was gone, replaced by the particular respect that operators reserve for those who have proven themselves under fire. "I still can't believe you were making lasagna for us last week," Rodriguez said, wringing water from his equipment. "Best damn lasagna on base, by the way." "The secret is in the sauce," Olivia replied, methodically checking her waterlogged gear, low and slow with a touch of anchovy paste for depth of flavor. The unexpected domesticity of her response drew surprised laughter from the team. It was a moment of connection, a bridge between the cook they had known and the operative they had witnessed in action. As the extraction helicopters approached, Captain Reynolds sat down beside Olivia. "You saved our lives back there, several times over." Olivia nodded slightly, acknowledging the statement without false modesty. "It's what I was trained to do." "That's more than training," Reynolds countered. "What you did today, the perception, the adaptation, the sheer range of skills, that's beyond any training program I've ever encountered." "Experience," Olivia corrected. "Training gives you the foundation. Experience teaches you when to follow protocol and when to ignore it." "Completely." She looked at Reynolds directly. "Remember that. It might save your life someday." The extraction team arrived with efficiency born of countless similar operations. As they boarded the helicopters, Sergeant Diaz paused beside Olivia. "The men have a question," he said. "After this is over, will you be going back to the kitchen?" It was a question Olivia herself had been pondering throughout the mission. The familiar rush of operational success, the clarity of purpose she felt in the field, the knowledge that her skills had directly saved lives, these were powerful draws, stark contrasts to the quiet routine of her life as a cook. Yet there had been peace in that kitchen too. A different kind of purpose, a different kind of contribution. "That depends," she replied finally, "on whether Colonel Harrison still wants me making his breakfast after watching me shoot down mercenaries." Diaz grinned. "Ma'am, after today, I think Colonel Harrison would eat anything you put in front of him, no questions asked." The helicopters lifted off into the night sky, carrying the team back towards safety and the inevitable debriefings that would follow. As the adrenaline of the mission began to fade, Olivia felt the weight of her choices settling around her shoulders. She had stepped back into a world she had deliberately left behind. The question now was whether she could or should step away from it again. In the darkness of the helicopter cabin, surrounded by operators whose lives she had safeguarded, Olivia closed her eyes and allowed herself a moment of honest reflection. Perhaps the greatest deception hadn't been hiding her past from others, but hiding from herself the truth that had become clear during this mission. Some people are born with gifts that come with responsibility. Her exceptional abilities weren't just skills she had acquired. They were central to who she was. The realization didn't bring clarity about her future, but it did bring a certain peace. Whatever path she chose moving forward, it would be with full awareness of both her capabilities and her responsibility to use them wisely. As the helicopters approached the forward operating base, Olivia opened her eyes to find the team watching her with expressions of quiet respect. In their faces, she saw something she had missed during her years in the kitchen: the recognition of kindred spirits, people who understood the burden and the honor of serving in the shadows. "We're 10 minutes out," the pilot announced over the intercom. "Prepare for landing." Olivia nodded to herself. 10 minutes to prepare for whatever came next. It was more than enough time. She had made harder transitions with less warning. Whatever awaited her at Fort Westlake, whether a return to the kitchen or a new role entirely, one thing was certain: she would never again pretend to be less than she was. The base cook with the hidden past had stepped fully into the light, and there would be no going back to the shadows of denial. The extraction team arrived at Fort Westlake under the cover of darkness 48 hours after their mission began. Olivia stepped off the helicopter with the quiet confidence of someone returning to familiar territory, though whether that territory was the military base or the world of covert operations remained unclear even to her. The debriefing began immediately. Senior officers assembling in the secure conference room where, just days earlier, Olivia had been nothing more than the person delivering pastries. Now she sat at the center of the table, delivering a mission assessment with the precision and insight that had once made her legendary within classified circles. Colonel Harrison, whose dismissive attitude had vanished entirely, listened with rapt attention as she detailed not only what they had discovered at the weapons facility, but her analysis of the third party that had attacked during their operation. Based on their equipment and tactics, I believe we're looking at the Meridian Group, Olivia explained, her voice calm and authoritative. They're a private military contractor with ties to several intelligence agencies. Their presence suggests someone with significant resources is interested in either acquiring or eliminating the chemical agents being developed at the facility. How certain are you of this identification? Asked General Montgomery, who had joined the debriefing via secure video link. 85%, Olivia replied without hesitation. Their operational signature matches previous Meridian deployments I've encountered, particularly their four-man stack formation and their distinctive communication protocols. General Montgomery nodded thoughtfully. Your assessment aligns with other intelligence we've received. This complicates the situation considerably. The debriefing continued for hours, with Olivia fielding questions with the ease of someone who had conducted hundreds of similar sessions. When it finally concluded, the room emptied except for Olivia, Colonel Harrison, and General Montgomery on the video screen. We need to discuss your status moving forward, Miss Chen. Harrison began, clearly uncomfortable with how to address the woman he now knew had once outranked him. Captain Chen, Montgomery corrected. Her commission was never officially terminated, merely placed in inactive status. Olivia looked up in surprise. Sir? Montgomery's expression remained neutral, but there was something like satisfaction in his eyes. There were aspects of your separation from the program that I didn't share with you at the time, Captain. Your skills were too valuable to lose entirely. I created a contingency that would allow for your reinstatement under specific circumstances. Without my knowledge or consent, Olivia noted, her voice cooling slightly. Yes, Montgomery made no attempt to justify the decision. The question now is what happens next. Colonel Harrison has requested that you remain at Fort Westlake in an advisory capacity for their Special Operations Training Program. Harrison cleared his throat. Your performance during this mission was exceptional. The skills you demonstrated would be invaluable to our operators, and it would allow you to continue your current cover assignment if you wished. You want me to teach advanced tactics while still making your breakfast, Olivia stated flatly. Harrison had the grace to look embarrassed. When you put it that way, I need time to consider my options, Olivia said, rising from her chair. The past 48 hours had reopened doors she had deliberately closed years ago. Walking back through them was not a decision to be made lightly. Of course, Montgomery agreed. But don't take too long, Captain. The situation with Meridian Group is developing rapidly. We may need your specific expertise again sooner rather than later. As Olivia left the conference room, she found Captain Reynolds waiting in the hallway. The intelligence officer had been quiet during the debriefing, but her observant eyes had missed nothing. Quite a change from serving pot roast on Thursdays, Reynolds commented as they walked together. The pot roast is still happening, Olivia replied. I have 300 people expecting dinner tonight. Reynolds laughed, then grew serious. Is that really what you want? To go back to the kitchen after everything that happened? Olivia considered the question carefully. The kitchen has given me something I never found in operations, Captain. Peace. Purpose without destruction. the ability to nurture rather than harm. But you save lives out there, Reynolds countered. You have gifts that no one else in our entire command structure possesses. Doesn't that create an obligation to use them? It was the central question Olivia had been wrestling with since the moment she spotted the flawed mission plan. Did exceptional ability create inherent responsibility? Was it selfish to choose personal peace over service that could save lives? I don't have an answer for you, Olivia admitted. Not yet, Reynolds nodded in understanding. For what it's worth, I think there's a middle path. A way to use your gifts without losing yourself in the process. Perhaps, Olivia agreed. But first, I have dinner to prepare for a base full of hungry soldiers who have no idea their cook just returned from a classified operation. In the kitchen, Olivia found her staff in disarray. Her sudden absence had been explained as a family emergency, but the disruption to their well-established routines was evident in the chaos of preparation. Miss Chen, her assistant Miguel exclaimed with relief when she walked through the door. Thank goodness you're back. We've been trying to keep up, but nothing's working right without you. Olivia surveyed the kitchen with the same tactical assessment she had applied to the weapons facility. The pot roast needs another hour. The potatoes are undercooked, and someone used oregano instead of thyme in the gravy. The familiar problems were almost comforting after the life-and-death decisions of the past 2 days. Olivia tied on a fresh apron and set to work, her hands moving with practiced efficiency as she rescued the evening meal from disaster. The simple concrete tasks of cooking provided a respite from the complex questions awaiting her decision. As she worked, Olivia became aware of a subtle change in the atmosphere when soldiers entered the mess hall. Word had spread, as it inevitably did on military bases. Not the classified details, but enough for rumors to circulate about the quiet cook who had suddenly revealed unexpected abilities. She felt their curious glances, heard the whispers, noticed how conversations paused when she emerged from the kitchen. It was another kind of exposure, different from having her cover blown in a hostile environment, but unsettling nonetheless. The careful boundaries she had constructed between her past and present were dissolving, leaving her in an undefined space that was neither fully her former nor her current self. After dinner service concluded, Olivia cleaned her station with meticulous care, the routine both soothing and symbolic. As she hung up her apron, she made her decision. Not the full choice that Montgomery and Harrison awaited, but the immediate next step. She needed perspective that could only come from someone who had known her before, who understood the weight of the choices she faced. Lieutenant Marcus Reed, now Major Reed, was stationed at Fort Benning, a 6-hour drive away. The man whose life she had saved at the cost of her career might be the only person who could help her navigate this unexpected crossroads. Olivia called him from her car, using a secure line provided during the debriefing. Chun? His voice registered shock when he answered. Is it really you? It's me, Marcus. They told me you'd gone deep civilian, that you were completely off-grid. Things change. I need to talk, face to face. There was only a moment's hesitation. Come to the old place. I'll be there. The old place was a fishing cabin. In the mountains, a safe house they had used during training exercises years ago. It was remote, secure, and held memories of a simpler time before the decisions that had altered both their lives. The drive gave Olivia time to organize her thoughts. She had spent 5 years rebuilding herself, creating a life that offered respite from the moral complexities and physical dangers of her former world. The kitchen had become her sanctuary, a place where she could serve without killing, nurture, without calculating acceptable losses. But the mission had awakened something she had tried to bury, the undeniable fact that her skills could save lives in ways that no one else's could. That in walking away to find personal peace, she might be withholding capabilities that could prevent suffering. The cabin was exactly as she remembered it, a small, weathered structure beside a mountain lake, isolated enough to speak freely, but comfortable enough for clear thinking. Marcus was waiting on the porch, older than when she'd last seen him, with new lines around his eyes and gray at his temples. But his smile was the same, warm and genuine, lighting up at the sight of her. "The legendary Phantom," he said as she approached. "Trading tactical gear for a spatula. Never thought I'd see the day." "Neither did I," Olivia admitted, accepting his embrace. There was history between them, not romantic but deeper in some ways. The bond of people who had faced death together and emerged forever changed. Inside, they talked for hours. Olivia detailed the events at Fort Westlake, the mission, and the choice now facing her. Marcus listened without interruption, as he always had, his tactical mind processing the implications of each element. "They want you back," he concluded when she finished. "Not just for this Meridian situation, but permanently. Montgomery never intended to let you go completely." "So it seems," Olivia agreed. "The question is whether I want to go back." Marcus studied her thoughtfully. "Do you, truly? Because from where I'm sitting, you've already made the decision. You could have ignored what you saw in that briefing room. You could have stayed in your kitchen and let events unfold without your intervention. But you didn't." "People would have died," Olivia said simply. "People die every day, Chun. You can't save them all. The question is whether you're willing to carry the weight of the ones you could have saved, but chose not to." It was brutally direct, but that had always been Marcus's way. No platitudes, no gentle evasions, just the hard truth as he saw it. "The kitchen gave me peace," Olivia said quietly. "For the first time since Samara, I wasn't haunted by the choices, the losses, the compromises. And now? Now I'm not. Sure that peace was ever real. Maybe it was just avoidance. Hiding from who I really am and what I'm capable of doing." Marcus poured them both another drink. "There's another possibility you're not considering. Which is, that both versions of you are real. That you can be both the person who finds joy in creating nourishment and the person who excels at the darkest aspects of protecting others." He leaned forward intently. "The mistake is in thinking you have to choose one identity over the other." Olivia considered this perspective, so different from the binary choice she had been framing in her mind. "You're suggesting integration rather than selection." "Exactly," Marcus smiled. "The Olivia who saved my life in Samara and the Olivia who apparently makes world-class pot roast are the same person. Different facets, different applications of the same core qualities: precision, dedication, extraordinary competence. Montgomery and Harrison want me to train operators while maintaining my cover as base cook," Olivia mused. "Perhaps there's something to that approach after all. With one critical difference," Marcus noted. "This time, it would be your choice. Not an assignment, not a cover, but a deliberate decision to embody both aspects of yourself." The conversation continued through the night, exploring possibilities, weighing implications, examining what integration might look like in practical terms. By dawn, Olivia had reached a clarity that had eluded her since the moment she glimpsed those satellite images in the briefing room. "I need to go back," she told Marcus as they watched the sun rise over the lake. "Not to choose one life over the other, but to find a way to honor both." Marcus nodded, understanding perfectly as he always had. "The world needs both your knife skills, Chun, the culinary ones and the other kind." The drive back to Fort Westlake gave Olivia time to refine her decision into a concrete proposal. By the time she reached the base, she had formulated an approach that honored both aspects of her identity while maximizing her contribution. She found Colonel Harrison in his office, reviewing reports with an exhaustion that suggested he hadn't slept since their return. He looked up in surprise as she entered. "Captain Chun," he acknowledged, her military rank still awkward on his tongue after years of seeing her as kitchen staff. "Have you reached a decision?" "I have," Olivia confirmed. "But not the one you and Montgomery outlined." I'm proposing an alternative. She laid out her vision clearly and concisely. She would continue her role as head chef at Fort Westlake, maintaining the cover that had served her well for 4 years. But she would also establish a specialized training program for selected operators, not standard tactical instruction, but the unique skills she had developed during her years with the Shadow Operations Group: adaptive infiltration, environmental analysis, improvisation under extreme constraints. The skills that can't be taught in conventional programs, but make the difference between success and failure in the most difficult missions, Olivia explained. A small, exclusive program with rigorous selection criteria, conducted under the guise of an advanced culinary course for officers. Harrison's eyebrows rose. A cooking class that's actually covert operations training? Precisely, Olivia. Confirmed. Cooking and tactical operations share fundamental principles: timing, resource management, adaptation to changing conditions, precision under pressure. The culinary framework provides both effective cover and surprisingly relevant practical applications. It's unorthodox, Harrison admitted. So am I, Olivia replied simply. This approach allows me to honor both aspects of my capabilities, while providing maximum value to the people who need these skills most. Harrison considered the proposal for a long moment. I'll need to discuss this with General Montgomery. But speaking personally, I think it's brilliant. The discussion with Montgomery proved more challenging. The general had envisioned bringing Olivia back into the operational fold completely. Not this hybrid approach that maintained her independence while leveraging her skills. You're proposing to train our operators in the very skills that make you exceptional while continuing to bake muffins, Montgomery summarized, his tone making clear his skepticism. I'm proposing to share critical capabilities that could save lives, while maintaining a functional cover that allows me to operate with maximum effectiveness, Olivia corrected. And yes, that includes continuing to run the kitchen that provides food for every person on this base. Why the insistence on continuing your culinary role? It seems unnecessary now that your background is known to key personnel. Olivia chose her words carefully. Because it's not just a cover, sir. It's part of who I am now. The kitchen taught me something operations never did: how to create rather than destroy, how to nourish rather than harm. I won't abandon that. Growth. Montgomery studied her through the video screen, his expression unreadable. And if we need your operational skills directly? If another situation arises where your specific capabilities are required in the field? I'll be available for consultation, and in exceptional circumstances, direct participation, Olivia allowed. But not as a return to full operational status. My days of taking regular deployments are over. The negotiation continued for hours, with Olivia holding firm to her core principles while demonstrating flexibility on implementation details. By the end, a compromise was reached that satisfied all parties. Olivia would maintain her position as head chef while establishing a specialized training program under the innocuous title Advanced Resource Management and Adaptive Techniques. Congratulations, Captain Chen, Montgomery said as they concluded the agreement. You've managed to create a role that has no precedent in our organizational structure. Thank you, sir. I believe unprecedented problems sometimes require unprecedented solutions. Over the following weeks, Olivia developed the framework for her unique training program. She selected the first cohort of participants personally, 8 operators with exceptional potential but unconventional thinking styles that had sometimes placed them at odds with traditional military structures. Among them was Specialist Rodriguez, the young team member who had shown particular adaptability during the Kashmir mission. His inclusion raised eyebrows given his junior rank, but Olivia insisted on selection based on capability rather than seniority. Exceptional skills don't always correlate with time in service, she explained when questioned about her choices. I'm looking for natural adaptability, creative problem-solving, and the capacity to operate effectively outside established parameters. The program officially launched with a session that deliberately blurred the lines between her culinary and tactical expertise. In the base kitchen after hours, Olivia gathered her selected trainees around a large preparation table. "Today we're making bread," she announced, drawing confused looks from the operators who had expected something more aligned with their combat specialties. "Specifically, we're making bread with severely limited resources, under time constraints while adapting to changing conditions." What followed was a masterclass in adaptive thinking disguised as a baking lesson. Olivia systematically removed tools and ingredients throughout the process, introduced unexpected complications, and created artificial stressors that forced the operators to improvise solutions with whatever was available. "In the field, you will never have exactly what you need," she explained as they struggled to adapt. "The difference between success and failure is often your ability to create functional alternatives from whatever is at hand." By the end of the session, only 2 of the 8 participants had produced edible bread, but all had gained insights into their adaptive capabilities and limitations. More importantly, they had begun to understand that Olivia's approach to training would be unlike anything they had previously experienced. "That was the most stressful bread I've ever made," Rodriguez commented as they cleaned up the kitchen. "And I'm still not sure what it has to do with tactical operations. Weren't you paying attention?" Another participant, Lieutenant Sarah Morris, replied. "It wasn't about the bread. It was about functioning effectively when everything goes wrong, and you have to create solutions with inadequate resources." Olivia smiled slightly, pleased that at least one trainee had grasped the underlying principle. "Exactly, Lieutenant. In your next mission, you might not be making bread, but you will absolutely face situations where your planned approach fails and you must create alternatives under pressure." The training progressed from these indirect lessons to more explicit, tactical instruction, always maintaining the culinary framework as both cover and teaching tool. Knife skills sessions became lessons in precision under pressure. Menu planning translated to mission preparation and resource allocation. Kitchen organization provided principles for team structure and communication. Throughout it all, Olivia continued her regular duties as head chef, preparing meals for the base with the same dedication she had shown before her covert background was revealed. For many at Fort Westlake, she remained simply Ms. Chen from the kitchen, though the whispers and curious glances continued whenever she entered common areas. Some of the base personnel, particularly those who had worked closely with her in the kitchen, struggled to reconcile the quiet, efficient cook they had known with the legendary operative she was rumored to be. Miguel, her assistant chef, finally worked up the courage to ask the question many had been wondering. "Miss Chen," he began hesitantly one morning as they prepared breakfast, "is it true what they're saying? That you were some kind of super spy before you came here?" Olivia continued dicing onions with precise, efficient movements. "I had a different job before I became a chef, yes. But the stories they're telling about you saving that team in Kashmir, about knowing all these languages and fighting skills." Miguel's voice trailed off uncertainly. Olivia sat down her knife and looked at her assistant directly. "Miguel, everyone has different chapters in their lives. Different skills they develop, different roles they play. What matters isn't what I did before, but what I'm doing now." "Which is what exactly?" Miguel asked, genuinely confused. "Are you still our chef, or are you something else now?" "Both," Olivia replied simply. "I'm both." The dual nature of her role created occasional complications. Some base personnel who had previously treated her with casual dismissal now approached her with awkward deference. Others seemed uncomfortable in her presence, unsure how to interact with someone whose identity had been so dramatically redefined in their eyes. Captain Reynolds, who had been quietly supportive throughout the transition, offered an observation as they shared coffee one afternoon. "You've become a walking contradiction to them," It challenges their need to put people in neat categories. People are never just one thing, Olivia replied. We contain multitudes, as the poet said. Some of us just have more extreme versions of those multitudes. Speaking of extremes, Reynolds continued, the intel on Meridian Group has developed. They've been traced to 3 more operations in the region, all targeting research facilities, similar to the one we encountered. Olivia's expression sharpened with interest. They're collecting capabilities, building a portfolio of chemical and biological options. That's our assessment as well. Montgomery wants to brief you on the details tomorrow. He thinks there might be a connection to your previous work that could provide context. The mention of her previous work, a diplomatic reference to her classified operations with the Shadow Operations Group, brought Olivia's dual identity into stark relief. She had found a balance that honored both aspects of herself, but the past was never truly past. It lived within her, informing her present and shaping her future in ways both subtle and profound. As she prepared for the briefing that would potentially draw her back into the shadowy world of international intrigue, Olivia reflected on the journey that had brought her to this unique position. The traumatic mission that had ended her operational career. The years of rebuilding herself through the structured peace of the kitchen. The chance glimpse of satellite imagery that had pulled her back into a world she thought she had left behind. The path had not been linear or predictable. It had been a series of choices, some deliberate and others forced by circumstance, that had gradually revealed not just who she was, but who she could become when she embraced the full spectrum of her capabilities. In the kitchen that evening, preparing dinner for hundreds of soldiers who still saw her primarily as their chef, Olivia found herself at peace with the duality she had created. Tomorrow she would step back into the world of intelligence analysis and covert operations planning. Tonight, she would perfect the béarnaise sauce for the steak special. Both were expressions of the same core qualities: precision, dedication, extraordinary competence. Both mattered. Both saved lives in their own way. As she tasted the sauce, adjusting the balance of flavors with the same careful attention she had once given to calibrating explosive charges, Olivia Chen, chef and operative, creator and protector, smiled at the perfect harmony she had found in what once seemed irreconcilable contradiction. Her story was far from over. The Meridian Group situation would demand her unique capabilities. Her training program would shape a new generation of operators who understood that adaptation was not just a tactic but a way of being, and every day she would continue to prepare meals that nourished the bodies and spirits of those who served. It was not the life she had originally envisioned, nor the one that had been planned for her. It was something new, something uniquely her own, a life that honored all that she was capable of being, without sacrificing any essential part of herself. The base cook with the hidden past had become something more complex and more authentic. A woman who had found the courage to integrate her seemingly contradictory gifts into a singular, powerful whole. The morning briefing on the Meridian Group began at 0600 hours, in a newly established secure room adjacent to the kitchen. The unusual location had been Olivia's idea, allowing her to transition seamlessly between her culinary duties and her intelligence work without drawing attention from the general base population. One moment she was checking the breakfast preparation, the next she was analyzing complex threat patterns with senior military officials. General Montgomery appeared via secure video link, flanked by intelligence analysts from various agencies. The atmosphere was tense, the expressions grave. Whatever had developed overnight was significant enough to warrant this unprecedented gathering. Captain Chen, Montgomery began without preamble, we've confirmed that Meridian Group has acquired chemical weapons capabilities from 3 different research facilities in the past month. The pattern matches the facility you encountered in Kashmir, suggesting a coordinated effort to assemble a specific portfolio of agents. Olivia studied the data appearing on her screen, her mind instantly cataloging connections and implications. "They're building a multi-stage delivery system," she observed, seeing patterns that others had missed. "These aren't random acquisitions. They're complementary compounds that can be deployed in sequence for maximum effect." The analysts exchanged glances, clearly impressed by how quickly she had synthesized information that had taken their teams days to process. "Exactly," Montgomery confirmed. "But the question remains, who are they working for, and what's the target?" Olivia expanded one of the chemical formulas, studying its structure. "This compound is specifically designed for dense urban environments. It adheres to concrete and glass, remains potent for up to 72 hours, and is particularly effective against enclosed ventilation systems." She looked up, her expression grim. "They're targeting a major city." The briefing continued for another hour, with Olivia applying her unique perspective, combining deep operational experience with an outsider's fresh viewpoint. Her years away from intelligence work, far from diminishing her capabilities, had given her a different lens through which to view the problem. "We need to identify Meridian's next target," Colonel Harrison stated, bringing the discussion back to immediate action items. "If they're acquiring these capabilities in sequence, they must have another facility on their list." "I can help with that," Olivia offered. "During my time with Shadow Operations, I mapped connections between weapons research facilities worldwide. Many of these networks remain active, just with different names and funding sources." Montgomery nodded. "We hoped you might have insights. In this area, how quickly can you produce an analysis?" Olivia glanced at the clock. "I need to oversee breakfast service first. I can have preliminary results by 1100 hours. The seamless shift between her roles might have seemed jarring to outsiders, but for Olivia, it represented the integration she had been working toward. Both aspects of her work required the same fundamental qualities: precision, focus, and the ability to manage complex systems under pressure. As the meeting concluded, Captain Reynolds lingered behind. "It's remarkable watching you work," she observed. "The way you move between analyzing chemical weapons and planning breakfast service without missing a beat." Olivia smiled slightly. "Different applications of the same skill set. In both cases, timing is everything. Details matter, and mistakes can have serious consequences. Though usually not quite as serious in the kitchen," Reynolds noted wryly. "You'd be surprised," Olivia countered. "Food allergies, nutritional requirements, morale impact. The kitchen has its own version of mission-critical operations." In the busy breakfast service that followed, Olivia directed her kitchen staff with the same quiet authority she had displayed in the intelligence briefing. To the soldiers moving through the serving line, she appeared exactly as she always had. Efficient, observant, focused on ensuring quality in every dish served. Only her kitchen staff had noticed subtle changes in recent weeks. Their once private chef now occasionally disappeared for classified meetings. Military personnel who had previously ignored her now treated her with a strange mixture of deference and curiosity. And sometimes, like today, her eyes carried an intensity that suggested her mind was processing matters far more consequential than breakfast casseroles. As the morning service wound down, Olivia retreated to her small office adjacent to the kitchen. The space had been modified with secure communications equipment, disguised as ordinary office supplies. A file cabinet contained a hidden compartment with specialized analysis tools. The seemingly basic computer on her desk had been upgraded with classified-level security protocols. The attack was unfolding almost exactly as she had predicted, with primary and secondary teams attempting the infiltration routes she had identified. "They're following the expected pattern," she observed, studying the tactical display where friendly forces were intercepting the Meridian teams before they could breach the facility perimeter. But watch for a third element. Their operational doctrine includes a contingency team with a completely different approach vector. Sure enough, within minutes, Sensors detected a small team approaching from an unexpected direction, attempting to access the facility through underground utility tunnels that didn't appear on standard schematics. How did you know? Harrison asked as they watched defensive forces move to intercept this third threat. Because it's what I trained their tactical commanders to do years ago, Olivia explained. Always have a contingency that leverages infrastructure elements too mundane to be heavily defended. Thanks to her warning, the defense team was prepared for this third approach. The operation concluded with Meridian forces repelled on all fronts, the facility secured, and minimal casualties among the defending personnel. A decisive victory, Montgomery declared during the after-action briefing. Captain Chun's insights were instrumental in anticipating and countering each aspect of the enemy approach. The success validated Olivia's integrated role in a way that mere theory could not. She had effectively applied her specialized knowledge without returning to field operations, providing crucial support while maintaining her chosen balance between her past and present identities. As the briefing concluded, Montgomery had one final announcement. Based on intelligence gathered during this operation, we've identified Meridian's primary client, the party behind the systematic acquisition of chemical weapons capabilities. The name he revealed sent a chill through Olivia. Anton Resnick, a figure from her operational past, a target she had once been assigned to eliminate, but who had escaped during a mission that went catastrophically wrong. 3 of her teammates had died in that failed operation, a rare blemish on Phantom's otherwise exceptional record. Resnick, she breathed, the name carrying the weight of old ghosts. He's still pursuing chemical weapons development. Montgomery nodded grimly. And based on the intelligence we've gathered, he has a specific target in mind. A major metropolitan area, though we haven't yet identified which one. The revelation added a personal dimension to what had been a professional challenge. Resnick represented unfinished business, a mission incomplete, a threat she had failed to neutralize years ago. Now his shadow had unexpectedly reappeared in her carefully reconstructed life. I'll prepare a complete briefing on Resnick, Olivia offered, her voice steady despite the emotions churning beneath the surface. His methodology, preferences, psychological profile, everything that might help identify his target and prevent the attack. Thank you, Captain, Montgomery replied. Your personal knowledge of this individual could be decisive in countering his plans. As Olivia returned to the kitchen to oversee dinner preparation, her mind processed this new development. The past was reaching into her present in ways she couldn't have anticipated. Resnick's reappearance represented both a threat and an opportunity, a chance to complete what had been left unfinished, to protect innocent lives that had been jeopardized by her previous failure. Her assistant Miguel noticed her preoccupation as she mechanically checked the evening's preparations. Everything okay, Ms. Chen? He asked cautiously. Olivia refocused, bringing her attention fully to the present moment. Yes, Miguel. Just planning some adjustments to tomorrow's menu. It wasn't entirely untrue. She was planning, not menu changes, but how to integrate this new challenge into the balanced life she had constructed. The emerging Resnick situation would test the boundaries she had established, potentially drawing her deeper into operational involvement than she had intended. As she directed the dinner service, moving efficiently through the familiar routines of the kitchen, Olivia reflected on how her journey had unfolded. From elite operative to base cook to this new integrated identity that encompassed both worlds. Each transition had required adaptation. Each challenge had demanded growth. The reappearance of Resnick was simply the next test in this evolution. That evening, after the kitchen closed, Olivia remained behind to prepare a comprehensive briefing on Anton Resnick. She drew upon memories and knowledge she had deliberately set aside years ago, reconstructing the profile of a man whose ambitions had always targeted maximum civilian casualties for minimum operational investment. The work was difficult, forcing her to revisit the failed mission, that had cost teammates their lives. But as she systematically assembled the intelligence package, Olivia recognized that her perspective now was different. The years of distance, the growth she had experienced, the balance she had found between her different capabilities, all gave her insights she hadn't possessed during that original mission. Captain Reynolds found her still working well past midnight, surrounded by notes and secure data files. "You should get some rest," Reynolds suggested gently. "The briefing isn't scheduled until 0900. This is too important for anything less than comprehensive preparation," Olivia replied, though she acknowledged her fatigue with a small smile. "Resnick isn't just another target. He's methodical, patient, and utterly without moral constraints. If he's behind the Meridian operation, the potential casualty count is significant." Reynolds studied her with concern. "This is personal for you, isn't it?" Olivia paused, considering how much to reveal. "I had an opportunity to stop him years ago. The mission failed. People died. Good people, teammates." She looked directly at Reynolds. "I don't believe in dwelling on past failures, but I do believe in learning from them. Everything I've experienced since then, including my time in this kitchen, has given me perspectives I didn't have before." "What do you mean?" "Resnick thinks exclusively in terms of targets and casualties, abstractions, numbers. When I was an operative, I thought in similar terms, just from the opposite perspective." Olivia gestured toward the kitchen beyond the office door. "But serving people food every day, seeing their faces, knowing their preferences and allergies, and the small details that make them individuals, it changes how you think about acceptable casualties. There are no acceptable casualties when you see people as people, not as operational factors." The insight was profound in its simplicity. Olivia's years as a chef hadn't diminished her operational capabilities. They had enhanced them by adding a human dimension that pure tactical training often overlooked. "That's why you're so valuable in this dual role," Reynolds realized. "You haven't just maintained two separate skill sets. You've created something new by integrating them." Olivia nodded, a quiet certainty in her expression. "Integration rather than compartmentalization. It's taken me years to understand that the strength comes not from separating these aspects of myself, but from allowing them to inform each other." As she finally closed her files and prepared to get a few hours of sleep before morning preparations began, Olivia felt a clarity of purpose that transcended both her identities. The challenge represented by Resnick would require everything she had become. The tactical brilliance of Phantom and the human understanding of Chef Chen, unified into a singular, integrated whole. The base cook with the hidden past had evolved into something more powerful than either role alone could have produced. A woman who understood both the mechanics of violence and the value of nurturing, who could analyze threats with cold precision while never forgetting the human lives at stake. Tomorrow would bring new challenges as Resnick's plans developed and the response strategy took shape. But Olivia would meet those challenges not as a former operative pressed back into service, nor as a cook playing at intelligence work, but as her complete, integrated self, a unique asset precisely because she had embraced all aspects of her capabilities and experiences. As she turned out the lights in her office, Olivia's thoughts turned to the bread she would bake in a few short hours, and the lives that might depend on her ability to anticipate Resnick's next move. Different facets of the same person, united in purpose if distinct in application. The journey of integration continued, with each new challenge not an interruption of her chosen path, but a confirmation of its wisdom. By refusing to choose between her identities, she had become something greater than either could have been alone, whole rather than divided, integrated rather than compartmentalized. And in that integration lay not just personal fulfillment, but the unique capability to confront threats that no specialist, however skilled, could address with a single perspective. Dawn broke over Fort Westlake as Olivia completed her morning bread preparation. The rhythmic kneading had always been meditative for her, a way to center herself before challenging days. Today, that centering was particularly necessary. In 3 hours, she would present a comprehensive briefing on Anton Resnick to senior military and intelligence officials. The prospect of revisiting this chapter of her past brought complex emotions she had long kept buried. As her kitchen staff arrived, Olivia smoothly transitioned into her role as head chef, directing breakfast preparations with quiet efficiency. To anyone observing, she appeared exactly as she always had, focused, meticulous, completely present in her culinary responsibilities. Only the most perceptive might have noticed the subtle intensity in her eyes, the slightly more precise movements of her hands as she managed multiple tasks simultaneously. "Everything all right, Miss Chen?" Miguel asked as they worked side by side preparing eggs for the morning rush. Olivia offered a small smile. "Just a busy day ahead. I have a meeting after breakfast service." It was a significant understatement. But Miguel had learned not to press for details about her meetings. The dual nature of her role at Fort Westlake had become an accepted reality among her kitchen staff, though the specifics remained appropriately classified. As the soldiers and officers filed through the breakfast line, Olivia noticed General Montgomery himself among them, a rare appearance in the mess hall. Their eyes met briefly across the crowded room, a silent acknowledgement of the significance of the day ahead. Montgomery nodded slightly, his expression grave. Whatever intelligence had developed overnight regarding Resnick's plans, it wasn't positive. The recommendation contradicted their carefully developed plan, but Harlow had come to trust her insights. The team repositioned, approaching from the more difficult but less obvious direction Olivia had indicated. Her intuition proved correct. As they reached new observation positions, they discovered previously undetected defensive measures exactly where their original approach would have taken them. "That would have been ugly," Harlow acknowledged quietly over the cum. "Resnick prepares for conventional thinking," Olivia reminded him. "Sometimes the harder path is actually the safer one." The operation continued with this pattern, the team executing their basic plan, but adjusting continuously based on Olivia's real-time analysis. Her ability to anticipate Resnick's countermeasures repeatedly proved invaluable, identifying hidden threats before they could endanger the team. When they finally breached the compound's main building, Olivia's monitoring screens showed them moving efficiently through the structure, neutralizing security personnel with precision. But as they approached what intelligence had identified as Resnick's personal quarters, she noticed a discrepancy in the building's thermal signature. "Something's wrong," she warned Harlow. "The heat distribution doesn't match human occupation patterns in that section." "Meaning? It's a decoy. Resnick isn't there." The team confirmed her assessment moments later, finding the supposed quarters empty of their target. Frustration rippled through the communication channel as they secured the area, discovering evidence that Resnick had departed recently, perhaps hours before their arrival. "He knew we were coming," Harlow reported grimly. "But we have his operational plans. Computer systems, documents, communications equipment, it's all here." It was a partial victory. They had disrupted Resnick's immediate capabilities and gathered intelligence that would help prevent his planned attack. But the man himself had escaped once again, just as he had 5 years earlier when Olivia had come close to capturing him. As the team began extracting with their intelligence haul, Olivia noticed a pattern in the data they were transmitting back: communications logs showing regular transmissions to a secondary location less than 20 kilometers away. "There's another facility," she realized, quickly analyzing the communication patterns. "A backup location." That's where he went. The discovery presented an immediate tactical question. The team was already in extraction mode, the original mission parameters complete. Pursuing Resnick to this secondary location would mean extending the operation beyond its planned parameters, increasing risk and potentially compromising the valuable intelligence already secured. From a purely rational perspective, the correct decision was clear: complete the extraction with the gathered intelligence, rather than risk everything pursuing Resnick personally. That would be the recommendation of any conventional analyst. But Olivia wasn't just an analyst. She was someone who understood both the tactical and human dimensions of the situation, who recognized that Resnick would simply re-establish his operation elsewhere if not neutralized now, who knew firsthand the consequences of his escaping again. "Major Harlow," she said, her voice calm but resolute, "I'm transmitting coordinates for the secondary facility. Based on communication patterns, there's an 82% probability that Resnick relocated there when he abandoned the primary compound." Harlow was silent for a moment, weighing the implications. "That's outside our operational parameters. Command would need to authorize an extension. I understand. The decision is yours, but I wanted you to have all available information." Another silence, longer this time. "Then, what would you do, Captain, if you were here instead of there?" It was a profound question, bridging the distance between her advisory role and the operational reality on the ground. Olivia considered carefully, bringing her full integrated perspective to the moment. "I would complete the primary mission first, secure the intelligence you've already gathered. Then, if conditions permitted, I would pursue the secondary. Target with a volunteer element, not the full team. Minimal effective force." Harlow's voice returned, determined. "Understood. We'll secure the primary intelligence package with most of the team. I'll take 2 operators to investigate the secondary location." "I'll coordinate from here," Olivia confirmed. "And Major? He'll be expecting conventional pursuit tactics. Your advantage lies in unpredictability." As most of the team began their extraction with the secured intelligence, Harlow and 2 volunteers altered their route toward the secondary coordinates Olivia had identified. She guided them through terrain features that provided maximum cover, anticipating security measures based on her knowledge of Resnick's preferences. The secondary facility proved much smaller than the main compound, little more than a reinforced cabin with sophisticated communications, equipment, and a helicopter landing area. As Harlow's team established observation position, they confirmed a single helicopter on the pad, apparently being prepared for immediate departure. "Visual confirmation of target," Harlow reported tensely. "Resnick is on site, preparing to evacuate. 2 minutes to airborne status, maximum." Olivia studied the feeds from the team's optical equipment. After 5 years, she was looking at Anton. Resnick again, the man whose escape had cost her teammates their lives, whose plans threatened thousands of civilians. The tactical situation was challenging: limited personnel, minimal time window, high risk of target escape. "You have one chance," she advised Harlow. "The helicopter is your primary target. Disable it first, then focus on personnel. Approach from the southern tree line. It's the only angle that gives you line of sight to both the aircraft and Resnick himself." Harlow's team moved with precision born of extensive training and experience, positioning themselves exactly as Olivia had directed. When they initiated their assault, the element of surprise was total. The helicopter's fuel system was disabled with the first shots, eliminating Resnick's escape option. The security personnel were neutralized in the confusion that followed. And then, suddenly, it was over. Anton Resnick, architect of chaos and death, was in custody. The mission that had failed 5 years earlier was finally complete. As the team secured their high-value prisoner and called for extraction, Olivia sat back in her chair at the forward operating base, a complex wave of emotions washing over her. Not just the satisfaction of a successful operation, but a deeper sense of completion, of having finally closed a chapter that had remained painfully unfinished for years. Yet this completion had come not by returning fully to her former role, but by bringing her integrated self to the challenge. She had contributed her unique capabilities without compromising the balance she had worked so hard to achieve. Her path forward remained intact, even strengthened by this demonstration of its effectiveness. When Major Harlow's voice came through the channel one final time, his message was simple but profound. Couldn't have done it without you. Chef, you're as good in the control room as they say you were in the field. Olivia smiled at the title, not captain, but chef. It acknowledged both aspects of her identity, recognizing that her culinary role was not merely a cover, but an integral part of who she had become. Safe travels home, Major, she responded. There'll be fresh bread waiting when you get there. The promise was more than a casual comment. It was an affirmation of her integrated path forward, continuing to serve both in the kitchen that had given her peace and in the operational realm where her unique capabilities saved lives. As the mission concluded and preparations began for return to Fort Westlake, Olivia found a moment of quiet reflection. The base cook with the hidden past had become something new, not by choosing one identity over the other, but by allowing both to inform and enhance each other. The journey hadn't been easy or straightforward, but it had led to a wholeness that neither path alone could have provided. Tomorrow she would return to her kitchen, to the familiar routines of feeding hundreds of soldiers whose lives touched hers in ways both mundane and profound. But she would bring to that role the renewed clarity and purpose that came from this mission, just as she had brought her kitchen-honed patience and precision to the operational challenge. The integration continued, each aspect strengthening the other, creating something greater than the sum of its parts. Not just a chef who used to be an operative, or an operative disguised as a chef, but a wholly integrated individual whose unique combination of capabilities made her exactly who she needed to be, exactly when she was needed most. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from U.S.